The phone lit up like a flare in a dark room. Claire never forgot her phone, not once in 8 years of marriage. She'd forget a jacket, she'd forget to pick up milk, she'd forget that I hated cilantro the way some people hated religion, but she did not forget her phone. It sat face up on the kitchen counter, screen pulsing, casting that cold blue light over the granite like it owned the place. Outside, our neighborhood was quiet in that late-night way, where even the streetlights looked tired. The clock above the stove blinked 11:47, and the house smelled like the fancy hand soap Claire bought to impress people she didn't even like. She'd left 10 minutes earlier. "Quick errand," she'd said, keys already in her hand, eyes already somewhere else. She hadn't kissed me goodbye. She'd patted my shoulder like I was a dog that had done something acceptable. I told myself not to touch the phone. That's what you tell yourself when you already know you're going to do it. The screen flashed again. A message preview slid down. Same motel, like always? From Jason. My brother's name on my wife's lock screen felt like a punch delivered by a polite man wearing gloves. I stared at it until my eyes started to water. Not from sadness, not yet, but from the dumb animal shock of it. Like stepping on a nail you didn't see. My hand moved anyway. The phone was warm. It had been in her palm. It had been pressed to her face. It had heard her laugh at things I didn't hear. I swiped up. Claire never used a passcode at home. She said she didn't want secrets between us. People who say that are usually the ones hiding the most. Jason's thread was open. The last dozen messages were short, familiar, practiced, like the two of them had rehearsed a whole separate life in the gaps of mine. Same motel, same time. You bring the key? I'll bring the wine. You sure he's home? He's home, like always. A tight little loop, a habit, a routine that wore the shape of my marriage like a mask. I sat down hard on the stool. My knees felt loose. My mouth tasted like pennies. I should have called her. I should have called him. I should have thrown the phone across the kitchen and let it shatter and then sweep the pieces into a bag like evidence. Instead, I took a breath and did the one thing I'd trained myself to do for years in my job. I wrote it down in my head like an incident report. Time, 11:47 p.m. Location, my kitchen. Observed behavior, my wife's phone receives message from my brother referencing a repeating motel meeting. I worked in corporate security for a shipping company, the kind of place with warehouses and cameras and people who lied with straight faces about missing pallets. I wasn't a cop, but I lived close enough to that world to know one thing. If you move too fast, you scare the truth back into its hole. Truth was sitting right in front of me, buzzing. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The sane part of me begged for mercy. The other part, quiet, cold, suddenly awake, leaned forward like it had been waiting its whole life to finally speak. I typed with Claire's phone. Yes, but I have a surprise for you. I stared at the message for a full second before I hit send. When it whooshed away, it felt like stepping off a ledge. Not falling yet, just leaving solid ground. Jason replied almost immediately. Then. What kind of surprise? I wrote, You'll see. Same room, another pause. Then, okay. Love it, love it. I set the phone down, face up, and watched the screen like it might bite. In the living room, the TV was still on, some late-night talk show laughing about things that didn't matter. The house was too quiet underneath it, like the walls were listening. I stood up, my hands were steady. That was the scary part. I should have been shaking. I should have been roaring. I should have been breaking something. Instead, I walked to the hall closet and pulled out my jacket. On the way out, I looked at our wedding photo on the entry table. Claire in her white dress, smiling like she'd just won something. Me beside her, smiling like I believed her. I didn't spit on it. I didn't throw it. I just stared long enough to feel something inside me shift, like a bolt sliding into place. Then I left the house and locked the door behind me. I didn't look back. Not yet. The night air was cold enough to sting my cheeks. My car, an old gray sedan that nobody ever noticed, started on the first turn like it was loyal in a way people weren't. I didn't speed. Speed was for people trying to outrun the moment. I wasn't running. I was going to meet it. The motel sat 12 minutes away on the edge of town, tucked behind a gas station and a row of dark trees like it was ashamed of itself. I knew it because I'd driven past it 100 times and never cared. It was just another cheap place with an open sign that never slept. Now it was a landmark. At a red light, my phone buzzed. Claire's name. I let it ring. Another buzz. A text this time. Running late. Don't wait up. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. When I pulled into the gas station across from the motel, I lost my headlights and parked in the shadow of a delivery van. The convenience store windows glowed bright. full of chips and energy drinks and the kind of fluorescent honesty you only get at 2 a.m. at a gas station. The motel lot was mostly empty, a few cars, a few trucks, the kind of place where nobody asked questions because nobody wanted answers. I sat there and watched. At 12:09, a white SUV rolled in and parked near the far end, under the flickering light that made everything look cheap and sick. Claire's SUV. I recognized the dent above the rear wheel from the time she'd scraped a pole and told me it was some idiot in a parking lot. The driver's door opened. Claire stepped out, smooth and quick, hair pulled back like she was going to a meeting. She looked around once, not like she was scared, but like she was checking the stage before a performance. Then another car pulled in behind her, dark sedan, older, familiar, Jason's car. My brother parked 2 spaces away. He got out and walked toward her like he belonged there, like he'd done it 100 times. He didn't wave. He didn't hesitate. He didn't act like a man about to destroy his brother. He acted like a man meeting his girlfriend. They didn't kiss in the lot. They didn't need to. They walked side by side toward room 17, shoulder to shoulder, close enough that their hands brushed and stayed brushing. Routine. That word hit me harder than the betrayal itself. An affair could be a mistake, a spiral, a stupid, hungry thing that happened when people were weak. Routine meant choice. Routine meant planning. Routine meant they'd built this, brick by brick, while I paid the mortgage and washed the dishes and asked my brother if he wanted another beer at family cookouts. I watched Claire take a key card out of her purse. The way she held it told me she'd used it before. The door opened. They went in. The curtains didn't move, no sudden shadows. Just the quiet swallow of them disappearing into a room that smelled like stale smoke and bleach and lies. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't storm over. I didn't call the police like this was a crime anybody would care about. I did what I did best. I noted the time, the room number, the cars. Then I reached into my glove box and took out a small notebook and a pen. I hadn't used it in months. I felt ridiculous, like a man about to document his own heart attack, but writing it down made it real in a way my mind was trying to soften. Room 17, white SUV, dark sedan. 12:11 a.m. I sat there for 10 minutes listening to my own breathing until my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, I answered without thinking. Hello? A pause. Then Claire's voice, too bright, like she was smiling while she spoke. Hey, she said. Where are you? I looked at the motel door across the street, the one that had swallowed my brother and my wife. Out, I said. Another pause. I could hear something behind her, muffled music, a TV, a human breath that wasn't mine. You sound weird, she said. I'm fine. You sure you're not mad about me leaving? She tried to laugh. I told you it was an errand. Yeah, I said. You did. Okay, she said, relief rushing in like she thought she'd dodged something. I'll be home soon. I almost asked her if she was going to wash the motel smell off before she got into my bed. I almost asked my brother if he'd look me in the eye at Christmas. Instead, I said, drive safe. When I hung up, my hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the effort of staying quiet. That's when I understood the first real truth of that night. This wasn't an affair. It was a routine. And routines can be broken. At 12:37, I got out of my car. The air smelled like gasoline and wet asphalt. Somewhere in the trees, a bird made a tired sound, like it regretted being awake. I crossed the street slow, hands in my jacket pockets, head down. I wasn't sneaking, I wasn't hiding. I was walking like a man who belonged wherever he decided to stand. The motel office window was open. A woman behind the counter looked up from her phone. She had tired eyes and a name tag that said Gina. She looked at me like she'd seen every kind of desperation and was bored of all of it. Need a room? She asked. No, I said. I'm here to see someone. Then you're in the wrong place, she said without looking away from her screen. I smiled a little. Funny. That's exactly why I'm here. She finally looked at me. I gave her the kind of calm stare that made people stop asking questions. In my line of work, calm was a weapon. She shrugged. Don't start anything. I don't get paid enough. I'm not starting, I said. I'm ending. I walked down the hallway. The carpet was stained, the kind of pattern meant to hide what had been spilled on it. The lights flickered like they were unsure if they wanted to stay alive. Room 17 was halfway down, on the right. I stopped in front of the door. From inside, I could hear the low murmur of voices. A laugh, Claire's laugh, the one she used when she wanted something. Then Jason's deeper laugh, too familiar, too close. My hand rose. For 1 second, I thought about kicking the door in. thought about the old movies where men roar and swing fists and feel better afterward. But this wasn't a movie. And I didn't want to feel better. I wanted to remember. I knocked. Just 3 taps. Firm, polite. The way a delivery guy knocks. The voices stopped. Footsteps, then the click of the latch. The door opened. Claire stood there in a sweater I'd bought her, hair slightly messy like she'd been running her fingers through it. Jason stood behind her, shirt untucked, eyes wide. They opened the door together, and everything ended that night. For a second, nobody spoke. It was like time had to take a breath before it could continue. Claire's face did something strange. Not guilt, not shame. It was closer to irritation, like I'd shown up at the wrong time for her schedule. Jason's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he wanted to explain, like he thought there was still a version of reality where this didn't mean what it meant. I looked past them into the room. A cheap bed, 2 suitcases, a bottle of wine on the dresser, 2 plastic cups. Routine. Claire swallowed. "Evan," she said, voice tight. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch until it felt heavy. Silence can bruise worse than words if you know how to use it. Then I said, "I got a text." Jason flinched. Claire's eyes flicked toward him, fast. A warning. "You went through my phone?" she said, like that was the real crime. "I didn't have to," I said. "It came to me." Jason stepped forward a half step. "Bro." I held up a hand. He stopped. My hand wasn't shaking now. It was steady as a judge's gavel. "I'm not here to yell," I said. "I'm not here to beg. I'm not even here to understand." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Then what are you here for?" I looked at her, really looked. I saw the woman I'd married and the stranger wearing her face. "I'm here to see it," I said, "so I never have to wonder again." Claire's mouth tightened. "Evan, this isn't—" "Don't," I said softly. The word landed like a slap. Not loud, not violent, but final. Jason tried again. "Listen, man." I turned my eyes to him. My brother. The kid I'd taught to ride a bike. The guy who'd stood beside me at my wedding, smiling in the photos like he was proud. "You ever wonder why I always paid for dinner?" I asked him. He blinked. "What?" "You ever wonder why I always covered you when you were short on rent?" I asked. "Why I told Mom you were doing great when you were barely holding it together?" His face went red. "Evan, come on." I nodded toward the room. "This is what you did with it." Claire stepped closer, anger rising like steam. "You don't get to make this about money." "It's not about money," I said. "It's about who you chose to be when you thought I wasn't looking." Claire's eyes flashed. "You don't know what you're talking about." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. The first stage of every lie. Deny the shape of the truth even when you're standing in it. I took a step back. "Oh, I'm leaving," I said. Claire's head jerked. "What?" "I'm leaving," I repeated. "Tonight." Jason's eyes widened. "Evan, don't be dramatic." I looked at him. "Dramatic is meeting your brother's wife in a motel like it's a standing appointment." That got him? He flinched like I'd burned him with a cigarette. Claire's voice hardened. "You can't just leave." I tilted my head. "Watch me." I turned away. Behind me, Claire's voice cracked for the first time. "Evan, please." Not because she loved me, because she was losing control of the story. I kept walking. Jason's footsteps rushed behind me. He followed me out into the hallway. I heard the door to room 17 swing wider, Claire watching from the threshold like a queen losing a pawn. Jason grabbed my arm near the exit. "Evan, wait," he said, voice low, desperate. "Let's talk." I looked down at his hand on me. It felt dirty. "Take your hand off," I said. "Listen," he whispered. "It's not what you think. We were just—" I didn't let him finish. I shoved him. Not a punch, not a brawl. Just a hard, controlled shove that slammed his back against the hallway wall. The sound echoed. Somewhere, a TV in another room laughed at something cheap. Jason's eyes went wide. He raised his hands like he wanted to fight, then remembered he wasn't that guy. I leaned in close enough for him to smell my breath. "You follow me again," I said quietly, "and I'll make sure you never get to touch anything that belongs to me ever again." His throat bobbed. "You can't—" "I can," I said, "because you already did." He stayed pinned to the wall by my stare, not my hands. Then I stepped back and walked out. Behind me, the motel door stayed open, spilling yellow light into the cold night. Claire didn't call my name again. She knew it was over. Not the marriage, the part where she got to pretend she was winning. When I got home, the lights were off. The wedding photo on the entry table looked different now, like it was a prop from a play that had closed. I didn't go to the bedroom. I didn't want the smell of her perfume on the sheets. I didn't want the echo of her pretending. I went to the office and pulled a suitcase from the closet. My hands kept moving, steady, like my body had been waiting for permission. Clothes, laptop, passport, a folder of documents I kept for work. Contracts, notes, the boring adult stuff that suddenly matters when your life splits in half. I stopped at the drawer where I kept our shared paperwork: mortgage, insurance, marriage certificate, Claire's handwriting on some of it, her neat little loops, her confidence. I took what I needed and left the rest like a corpse. At 2:03 a.m., the front door opened. Claire came in quietly, as if she could sneak past the wreckage of what she'd done. She froze when she saw the suitcase by the stairs. "Evan?" she whispered. I stood in the hallway, wearing my jacket again, like I was already gone. Her eyes flicked over the suitcase, the papers in my hand. "What is this?" "This is me," I said, "leaving." Her face tightened. "Because of what you saw." "Because of what you did," I corrected. She made a sound of frustration. "You don't know the whole story," I almost smiled. "I know enough." She stepped closer, trying to use the voice she used when she wanted me calm. "Evan, it's complicated." "It's not," I said. "It's you and Jason in a motel. That's not a puzzle." Claire's eyes flashed. "Jason is your brother." "Yes," I said, "and you're my wife. That used to mean something." She opened her mouth, closed it. The words she wanted weren't coming because the truth was in the way. Then her expression shifted. Something colder settled in. "You're going to regret this," she said. There it was. The threat. The part of her that didn't beg because begging meant weakness. I didn't flinch. "Probably," I said, "but not as much as I'd regret staying." Claire let out a short laugh, sharp as glass. "You think you can just walk away? From me? From this house? From the business?" "The business. We'd built it together, technically." Claire ran a boutique logistics firm that handled high-value shipments for private clients. I handled security, risk, contracts. I wasn't on the website. I wasn't the face. I was the spine. My money had paid for the first warehouse lease. My credit line had floated the first payroll. Claire liked to call it our dream. She also liked to forget whose sleep she was standing on. "I'm not walking away from what's mine," I said. She stepped closer, eyes hard. "Then fight for it." I looked at her, really looked. "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm choosing." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she never had. "Where will you go?" she asked, voice softer, not from kindness, but from calculation. "I've got a place," I said. "You're lying." I shrugged. "Get used to it." Claire's face tightened again. "You're not going to tell anyone about this." It wasn't a question. I considered. Then I said, "I'm not going to yell in public, if that's what you're asking." Claire's eyes narrowed. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you get," I said. She stepped back, arms crossing like armor. "Fine, go. See how long you last." Her voice dipped into a smirk. "You'll be back begging in a month." I paused at the door. Not because the words hurt. They didn't. Words were cheap. I paused because her confidence told me something else. She didn't think she'd lose anything. She thought she'd already won. I turned the knob. The cold air rushed in. Then I walked out. And this time, I never looked back. I didn't disappear in a cloud of drama. I disappeared the way a man disappears when he knows every camera angle and every routine. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town under my middle name. I redirected my mail. I changed my phone number. I told my boss I needed leave for personal reasons, and he didn't push because he'd seen the look in my eyes before. Men who'd been hit in the chest and hadn't started bleeding yet. The next morning, I hired a lawyer. Her name was Denise, and she didn't smile when she shook my hand. That's why I picked her. She listened while I explained, voice flat, like I was reporting a theft. She didn't gasp. She didn't ask about feelings. She asked about assets. "House is in both names," she said, flipping through paperwork. "Business?" "LLC," I said. "Claire is majority. I'm minority. But the loan agreements—" "Have your signature?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "And my money." Denise nodded slowly. "Okay. Here's what you do. You don't contact them. You don't threaten them. You don't make promises. You let me handle the boring part." I nodded. "I can do boring." She looked at me like she could see the knives behind my calm. "Good," she said. "Because the other part gets you arrested." I smiled slightly. "I'm not trying to get arrested." Denise slid a folder across the table. We file for separation. We secure your interest. We document everything. If you have proof of adultery, it matters in some places, not in others, but it always matters in negotiation. I thought of room 17, the open door, the cheap wine, the routine. I have proof, I said. Then keep it, she said. Don't wave it around. Truth is more valuable when it's quiet. On the way out of her office, I checked my phone. 99 missed calls. Jason. I didn't answer. Claire texted. Then I was threatened, then played the victim through my mother. Denise filed what she had to file, and I stayed quiet, clean, gone. Because patience isn't passive. It's hunting with your mouth closed. Months pass in movies like a montage, people jogging, people crying, dramatic music. In real life, months pass like a slow leak. My mother called 3 times before she finally left a voicemail that sounded like she'd been crying. Evan, she said, voice shaking, your brother says you're not well. Claire says you left without saying anything. Please call me. Jason had already started rewriting the story. I didn't call my mother back. Not because I didn't love her, because I didn't trust myself to stay calm. If I spoke to her, I'd tell the truth. If I told the truth, she'd confront them. If she confronted them, they'd deny and cry and accuse me of being paranoid. And then it wouldn't be about what they did. It would be about whether I was overreacting. So I let the silence do its work. I filed for divorce. I signed paperwork in Denise's office and watched my life turn into documents. Claire fought, not for love, but for control. She didn't want me back. She wanted me quiet. Jason sent one last message. We can fix this. We're family. I deleted it. 6 months after the motel, I left the city entirely. I took a job with a private risk firm in another state, industrial outskirts, cheap rent, no history. My new boss, a man named Cal, didn't ask questions beyond what mattered. Can you find the hole in a system? He asked me in the interview. Yes, I said. Can you keep your mouth shut while you do it? Yes, I said. He hired me on the spot. My days became warehouses, cameras, reports. My nights became quiet. I ate alone. I slept alone. I lifted weights until my arms burned, not because I cared about muscles, but because pain was honest. Claire tried to reach me twice that first year. Once through Denise, once through email. I didn't respond. The business, our business, kept going, but it limped. Claire was good at charm. She wasn't good at boring details. Clients want charm until a shipment goes missing. Then they want someone like me. Without me, small mistakes started piling up. A delayed delivery, a cracked seal, an insurance claim that got denied because the paperwork wasn't done right. I heard about it through the grapevine, the same way you hear about a storm in a town you used to live in. Jason kept working with her. Business partner, according to the website update. My brother, my wife, partners. Routine becomes public when nobody stops it. Years passed in clean, quiet cuts. The rage cooled into something sharper. I built a new life with no photos on the walls and no soft edges. Then, 7 years after room 17, the past found me again. It was late, the kind of late where the world feels empty, but you know it isn't. I'd been driving back from a site audit in a neighboring county. My company car was dusty, my tie loosened, my head full of numbers and lock codes. I stopped at a gas station off the highway. The lights were harsh. The coffee smelled like burnt regret. As I stepped out of the car, a voice behind me said my name like it was a dare. Evan? I froze for half a second. Not fear. Recognition? I turned. Jason stood there near the ice machine, holding a pack of cigarettes like he'd just remembered he still needed oxygen. He looked older, thinner. The easy confidence was cracked at the edges. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he forced a smile. Man, he said. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. I stared at him. Looks like you did. He laughed nervously. Okay, yeah, fair. He stepped closer, hands raised a little like he was approaching a wild animal. I've been trying to reach you, he said. Claire and I, we need to talk. I didn't move. You can talk. I don't have to listen. Jason's smile faltered. Evan, it's been years. Time doesn't erase math, I said. You still did what you did? His jaw tightened. You act like we murdered somebody. I didn't smile. You murdered trust, I said. You just didn't leave a body. Jason's eyes flicked around the lot. He didn't want witnesses. He wanted control. We were young, he said. We were grown, I corrected. He took a breath, trying another angle. Claire's in trouble, he said quickly. The business, there's a big contract, and they're asking questions. They want you. They want you to sign off on security protocols because you built them. I felt something in my chest, not pain, but the click of a lock opening. There it was. Need. After 7 years of silence, the first time my name mattered to them wasn't love, it was leverage. Jason took my silence as interest. He leaned in. We can make this right, he said. We can... I cut him off. Stop, I said. His mouth closed, his eyes narrowed. What? You're doing the thing, I said. The part where you talk fast and hope I forget what you are. Jason's face darkened. I'm trying to be decent here. I nodded. Decent would have been not texting my wife, same motel. Jason flinched like the words still stung. I stepped toward my car. Jason's voice sharpened. So what? You're just going to walk away again? I looked at him. I never stopped. That's when something in him snapped. He lunged, not to hit me, but to grab my arm, like he could physically keep me in the conversation. I twisted free, calm, controlled. Jason's eyes went wild. You think you're better than us now? I didn't answer. Jason stepped back, breathing hard. Then he did the one thing cowards do when they're losing. He ran. He bolted toward his car. Black sedan, same model, different year. Fumbled the keys, yanked the door open, and peeled out of the lot like he just robbed the place. I stood there watching his taillights swing onto the highway. I could have let him go. I should have. But there are moments when your body makes a decision before your mind can argue. I got in my car and followed. I didn't chase like a maniac. I didn't ride his bumper. I stayed back, 2 car lengths, then 3. Just close enough that he'd see me in his mirrors. Just close enough to remind him that running doesn't erase anything. Jason sped up. The highway was mostly empty, a few semis, a few lonely headlights. The night stretched out, black and wide, like it was giving us space. Jason took an exit hard, tires squealing. He dove onto a side road that cut through an industrial area. Warehouses, chain-link fences, the kind of place where nobody called the cops because they didn't want them showing up for other reasons. I followed, steady. His car swerved. He was scared. Scared people make mistakes. Up ahead, the road narrowed where construction had torn up part of the asphalt. Orange cones blinked in the dark. Jason didn't slow down. He hit the rough patch and his car jolted. The back end fishtailed. For a second, he recovered. Then he overcorrected and the sedan slammed into the curb, hard enough that sparks jumped from the undercarriage. The car spun, clipped a sign, and came to a stop sideways across the lane. I slowed and stopped a safe distance away. Jason stumbled out, swearing, panting. He looked at the damage. Front bumper hanging, tire shredded, a thin line of smoke curling from the hood. He turned and saw me sitting in my car, engine idling. For a moment, we stared at each other through the windshield like 2 men on opposite ends of a gun. Jason lifted his hands in a helpless gesture, rage and fear mixing. You did this! I rolled down my window just enough for my voice to carry. No, I said. You did? Jason's face twisted. You followed me. I drove on a road, I said. You drove like a guilty man. He took a step toward me. I didn't move. Jason stopped. The smoke from his car curled up between us like a warning. What do you want? He shouted. I looked at him, the wrecked car, the empty road, the quiet night. I wanted you to understand something, I said. Jason's eyes burned. What? That door you opened, I said. Never closed for me. It just moved. Jason swallowed. You're sick. I nodded once. Maybe. Then I rolled up the window, put the car in drive, and pulled away, leaving him standing in the dark beside his smoking sedan. I didn't report him. I didn't call anyone. I didn't need to. The consequence was already there, hissing and dripping oil. As I drove away, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, control, and I knew, deep down, that the real revenge wasn't going to be a punch or a crash. It was going to be timing. It was going to be paperwork. It was going to be the world watching them fall without understanding why. Because that's what they'd done to me. Only difference was, I'd learned how to plan. 2 weeks after the crash, my phone lit up in my office. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A text arrived. Please, we need you. No name, no signature. Just those 4 words, like a hook tossed into dark water. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to throw the phone in the trash and go back to my neat, controlled life. Then another text. It's about the Meridian contract. They're pulling out. If they pull out, we're done. Meridian. I knew that name. Big private client. High-value shipments. The kind of account that kept a small company alive. Meridian had strict security requirements. Requirements I'd written years ago. Requirements Claire had used to win the contract, smiling at the client while my work sat in a binder like invisible armor. If Meridian was pulling out, it meant someone had noticed the cracks. I typed one word. Why? The response came fast. Because they found the travel pattern. And they want to talk to you. Travel pattern. I felt my mouth go dry. The motel, the routine, the thing I'd watched from across the street like a man watching his own execution. I stared at the message thread, my thumb hovering. Then the phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time I answered. Evan? Claire's voice, smaller than I remembered, like it had been worn down by years of pretending. I didn't speak. Evan, she said again, breathy. Please, just listen. I leaned back in my chair. My office was clean, professional, neutral, a place where emotions didn't live. Claire's voice didn't belong there. Talk, I said. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 7 years. Meridian is doing an audit, she said quickly. They're asking about our procedures, our chain of custody, our compliance. Your compliance, I corrected. Claire swallowed. They're asking about you, she said. They want to know why you left. They want to know why your name is on the original security appendix. I said nothing. Claire's voice rushed, desperate. They found expense reports, travel itineraries. They found gaps. Gaps, I repeated. She hesitated. Then, they think we were using travel days for personal stuff. They think we weren't where we said we were. It wasn't fraud, not in the IRS sense. It was worse in the business sense. It was trust. It was a client realizing their shipments had been protected by people who treated responsibility like a joke. Claire's voice broke. If Meridian drops us, our line of credit gets called, our warehouse lease, everything. Evan, we'll lose the company. There it was. Not I miss you. Not I'm sorry. Not I ruined our lives. We'll lose the company I'd built the bones of. I stared at the wall. I thought about room 17, the open door, the wine, the routine. You didn't call me for 7 years, I said. Claire's breath hitched. You didn't call me when my mother begged for answers, I said. You didn't call me when Jason told everyone I was unstable. You didn't call me when you put his name on the website and called it partnership. Claire whispered, Evan, please. I let the silence grow. Then I said, Where is the audit? Claire's voice snapped up with hope. Next month, at the Meridian Supplier Summit. Downtown, big hotel. They're bringing their risk team. They're legal. Good, I said. Claire's relief poured through the line. So I'll be there, I said. She exhaled hard. Thank you. Evan, thank you. I knew. Don't, I said softly. Her voice stopped. I hung up, and I smiled. Because she still didn't understand the most important thing. I wasn't coming back to save her. I was coming back to finish it. Before the summit, I did what I always did when something ugly needed to be handled. I built a file, not a revenge scrapbook, not a folder of screenshots meant to win an argument on the internet. A real file, dates, locations, custody windows, policy language, and the kind of quiet details that make lawyers stop talking and start reading. I didn't hack anything. I didn't break into accounts. I didn't have to. Half of what goes into a business is sitting in its own records, waiting for the right person to notice. I pulled my old security appendix and compared it to the updated procedures Claire had posted for clients after I left. I pulled the travel rules we'd promised Meridian in writing. 2-person custody, no unscheduled stops, no gaps in tracking during handoffs. Then I lined those promises up against what Meridian had already flagged, those repeated motel stops during the exact windows where the chain of custody was supposed to be tightest. The pattern wasn't just embarrassing, it was structural. It meant the company's trust was a costume, and costumes tear the second you snag them on a nail. I also pulled the one thing that never lies, time. The message from Jason, same motel, like always, had a timestamp, and Claire's running late excuse had one too. I didn't need hotel footage. I didn't need a confession. In the real world, the simplest timeline is often the sharpest blade. I called Meridian and asked for their risk lead. I didn't pitch myself. I didn't beg for a seat at their table. I told them calmly that I had authored the original security controls for the carrier they were auditing and that I could answer any technical questions they had. They scheduled me for the summit. That night, alone in my kitchen with the file spread out like a crime scene, I realized something that should have scared me more than it did. I wasn't doing this because I couldn't move on. I was doing it because I finally could. The Meridian Supplier Summit filled a hotel ballroom with suits and staged smiles. Claire worked the room. Jason hovered at her shoulder. They didn't see me at first. A woman at the registration table looked up. Name? Evan Hart, I said. Her eyes flicked to the list. She paused, then her expression changed. Recognition, surprise. She handed me a badge without a word. I clipped it to my jacket and moved into the room. Claire saw me then. Her smile faltered. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Jason followed her gaze and went pale. They came toward me together, like they always did now. Routine and public. Evan, Claire said, voice tight. You're here. I said I'd be here, I said. Jason tried to smile. It looked like pain. Man, he said. Good to see you. I didn't shake his hand. Claire's eyes flicked around, checking who was watching. Her voice dropped. We need to talk before Meridian. We'll talk when it matters, I said. Claire swallowed. Evan? Claire, I said, and my tone made her stop. Calm isn't just calm. Sometimes it's a fence. A man in a gray suit approached. Late 40s, sharp eyes, the kind of face built by decisions. Mr. Hart? He asked. I turned. Yes. He extended a hand. Marta Lowell, Meridian Risk. Marta. The only name I needed in this room besides the ones that had betrayed me. I shook her hand, firm, professional. Marta looked past me to Claire and Jason. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. Thank you for coming, she said to me. Claire jumped in with a bright laugh. Marta, we're so glad you... Marta held up a hand, not rude, just final. We'll begin shortly, she said. Then to me, I'd like you in the front row. Of course, I said. Claire's face tightened. Evan, what is this? I looked at her. An audit, I said. Remember, the thing you asked me to help with? Jason leaned in, whispering, Don't do this here. I didn't look at him. Here's exactly where, I said. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly. Marta walked to the front, microphone in hand. Thank you all for attending, she began. Her voice was smooth. Meridian takes security and chain of custody seriously. Recently, we conducted a review of our contracted carriers and found concerns regarding travel compliance. Claire's shoulders went stiff. Jason's jaw clenched. Marta continued, calm, clinical. We identified a repeated travel pattern associated with one carrier, a consistent location repeated over multiple trips during scheduled client-site windows. The screen behind her flickered to life. A map, a highlighted dot, a motel off the highway, the same one. Room 17 didn't matter. The pattern did. I watched Claire's face drain as the dot stayed on the screen like a spotlight. Marta looked out over the room. Though our concern is not personal conduct, she said. Our concern is representation. If your team is not where you say you are during custody windows, our shipments are at risk. Claire's smile cracked. Jason's hand twitched like he wanted to grab something. Marta's eyes found mine. Mr. Hart authored the original security appendix for this carrier when the contract was signed, she said. We requested his presence today to clarify whether the procedures we were sold still exist in practice. People turned toward me like they'd been waiting for permission. I took the mic. I kept my voice level. When I wrote our security procedures, I assumed the operators respected the job, I said. If they decide the rules are optional, the whole contract becomes theater. I didn't name Claire. I didn't name Jason. I didn't have to. I left years ago because I discovered a routine, I continued, and the travel pattern Meridian found wasn't an accident. Marta stepped closer. Are you saying they can't meet requirements as operated? Claire's eyes begged. Jason's jaw clenched. Yes, I said. The room made that soft sound of people realizing a fire has already started. Jason surged up, shouting that I was bitter, that I'd run. He shoved toward me. I caught his wrist, turned his momentum, and guided him down onto his knees. Controlled, not cruel. Security arrived fast then. Not for me. The room didn't erupt. It just tilted. You could see the moment the older vendors started doing mental math, how fast they could put distance between themselves and Claire's badge. A few people lifted their cups, then set them down again like even coffee might stain them by association. Claire stood there with her hands locked at her waist, smile shaking, eyes darting from face to face like she was looking for someone to say this was all a misunderstanding. Nobody did. In business, silence is a vote. Marta didn't look triumphant. She looked tired, like she'd seen this kind of rot before and hated that it kept showing up in new suits. She leaned toward me and said, barely audible, "Thank you for being direct. We'll proceed accordingly." Then she stepped away, already closing the door behind them. Claire swallowed. Jason screamed her name. Jason fought and cursed as they hauled him toward the doors. Claire stood frozen, watching her partner get carried out like an inconvenience. As he was dragged away, Jason twisted back and locked eyes with me. Hatred, fear, a promise. I didn't blink. Claire finally moved. She stepped toward me, voice shaking. "Evan, what did you do?" I looked at her, calm. "I didn't confront you that night," I said, "because I was choosing how it would end." Claire's mouth opened. No sound came out. Rain started around dusk, steady and cold, turning the city into a smear of lights and reflections. My phone buzzed nonstop after the summit. Messages from old contacts, from Denise, from numbers I didn't recognize. People love a collapse. They love being able to say they saw it coming. I ignored them. At 9:14 p.m., Claire texted, "Meet me. Parking garage behind the hotel. Level 3. No apology, no greeting. Command, even now." I almost didn't go. Not because I was afraid, because the story was already over. But revenge isn't just winning. It's watching them understand they lost. So I went. The garage smelled like wet concrete and exhaust. The lights hummed overhead. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, patient drops. Claire stood near a pillar, coat pulled tight, hair damp. She looked smaller in the dim light, like the city had swallowed some of her confidence. Jason was there too, pacing like a caged animal. His blazer was gone. His face was flushed with anger. A third figure sat in a car nearby, engine running, some driver, some witness. Not important. I approached slowly. Claire spoke first, voice trembling with fury. "You destroyed us." I stopped a few feet away. "No," I said. "You did." Jason stepped forward, fists clenched. "You think you're some kind of hero." I didn't look at him. I looked at Claire. Claire's eyes were wet, but her jaw stayed stubborn. "You destroyed us," she said. "No," I said. "You did." Jason paced, furious, hands clenched. Claire tried to keep him calm. "Meridian is dropping us," she said. "The bank froze our line. If you tell them you spoke out of emotion, if you say you were unstable, maybe they'll reconsider." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You still think you get to edit reality." Jason snapped, "She's right. You ran. Now you're back to burn it all down." I looked at him. "You burned it the night you made my life a routine." Claire stepped closer, reaching for my arm out of habit. Control through touch. I moved back. "Don't touch me," I said. Her hand hung in the air. "I'm not playing wife tonight," she whispered like a confession. I smiled. "Perfect. You won't have to pretend ever again." I pulled a folder from my coat and handed it to her. She skimmed the first page, then the second. Her face went white. "The funding note," she breathed. "It got sold," I said. "I bought it. And after today, your covenant's triggered. It's called." Jason scoffed. Then his expression shifted when he realized there was no refinancing without Meridian. Claire's voice broke. "Evan, please. That warehouse. Our equipment, everything." "You're everything," I said. She stared at me like she was finally seeing the cost. Then a tow truck rolled into the garage, backing toward Jason's car. A driver stepped out with a clipboard. "Repo order," he said. Jason swore and lurched forward, but a second man climbed down from the truck. Quiet, built like a wall. Jason stopped. The chain hooked, metal clinked. The winch groaned. Claire whispered, "Evan, please." I looked at her. "Remember the text?" She blinked through tears. "Yes," I said, "but I have a surprise for you." Jason watched his car lift like a confession being dragged into the light. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, one last attempt at connection. I pulled it out, turned the screen dark, and slid it back. Then I turned away from them and walked up the ramp. Footsteps steady, rain echoing behind me. Behind me, Claire sobbed. Jason shouted. The tow truck pulled out. I didn't look back. I never would again.